All right, we are live. What's happening, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix. I am back. It is Sunday night. Sunday night AstroLive. We get together here once a week, and apparently YouTube is. I don't know about YouTube. It feels to me like it's some kind of little experiment, like The Prisoner. But we're addressing that, aren't we? Well, I am. The last week I've been over on Vimeo, and I've really liked it, and we've had a nice little migration from YouTube world, and the stats are very interesting in terms of actually being able to get a clear understanding and rendering of who's actually watching my show. And if you saw the Matrix Mash that Emily and I did on Friday, this is something that we talked about, and just how disingenuous this platform has been in terms of being able to report the stats in a fair way. They're not, and I've known this for a long time. At first I used to beat my head against the wall because it just felt like I was doing all this work and nothing was really getting any traction. And then I began to realize that there was something going on, and it made it a little bit better, but it didn't make it a whole lot better. Like, I knew what was happening, but it was still frustrating. And I would get emails from people who I had never heard from or heard of, and they would tell me about the show and some of the things that they were getting out of it, etc. So I realized that I was probably reaching more people than what would show up on the screen. But it really became evident when I went over to Vimeo, and I was getting my YouTube like stats on Vimeo with probably about 2/3 of the users. So that was really it's been really eye opening. So the plan moving forward is tomorrow, when we do 15 minutes of flame, I'll be streaming live on Vimeo, and then I will upstream to both Facebook and to YouTube simultaneously. So for the YouTube people who don't know that I've made that transition to Vimeo, they'll know within the first half an hour, and then I'm gonna say, hey, look, come on over here, because this is where we are. This is where the cool kids are hanging out, and then I'm gonna cut those feeds, and that's gonna be the way it is pretty much from now on, Monday through Thursday. The next change will be migrating to uh, my own website. It'll be the same thing. And it'll be a bit different. It's going to be more of a membership based model. There'll still be some free content. I'll still be upstreaming to YouTube and Facebook, but then we'll cut the stream, and whoever's there is going to be able to watch the show. And I'm thinking for the Friday Farcast, I might do the first hour um, in the same way. I just have to figure out how to bring guests on for the Friday Farcast, and through Vimeo. Once I get that down, once I nail that, we'll do the first hour on the Friday Farcast. That'll be free. Second hour, that feed will be cut. So I'm trying to move to a model that is probably more congruent with what a lot of other people are doing, with the exception that some people are doing that after they've posted a video. Like, they'll post an hour, and then if you're a Patreon member, you get to go over and watch the second hour free. I'm not really good at making videos. I'm sure if I had time to make videos, if I really wanted to spend the time to do it, I could probably do it. But I also enjoy going live. I like streaming live. I like the fact that there's no net. To me, it's exciting, and I get to feel the interaction with people, even though you're not in the same room with me. We're in the same spiritual house, so I get to feel that, and it's a really cool thing. Now, that's not to say that produced videos aren't good or important. They are. You can do certain things with really well produced videos that are fantastic. They're really fantastic. I think I'm going to keep Sunday Night Astro Live just right here on YouTube, so that I can do 2 hours or 3 hours. So there'll be, and listen, I've been doing this for 10 years now. And there's been so much content that I have, made public a lot. And so if I move to more of a membership kind of service, I'm okay with that. I've got 10 years of content in the bank, and I'll still be providing free content. You get a free half hour every day. You get a free hour on Friday, and you get Sunday Night Live free. And then for everybody else, you're going to get the benefits of getting to hang out for the rest of those shows and some other cool stuff that's a part of the membership. So that's what's happening here in terms of this experience, and I'm hoping to get David Palmer back on. This last week we were supposed to do it, and it didn't happen because that's when I found out that YouTube had essentially said, "Yo, you're banned for 2 weeks," but I'm not banned for 2 weeks. I don't know. Again, it feels very arbitrary, and I feel like Patrick McGoon, The Prisoner. So I'm going to try to get David back on. I sent him a text, and I'm hoping that we could do something on the I think it's the 20th or the 21st, right around the spring equinox. I think that'd be really great. That'd be great. The last time we got together was Saturn Uranus square, and the energy was phenomenal. And I'm thinking that the spring equinox energy could be equally outstanding. So that's where we are. For those of you who have subscribed over the last week, thank you. I appreciate it. And for those of you who have subscribed for really like the last year, I really started doing the more of the subscription thing right around when 19 hit. And because I thought, well, I don't know where this is going. I don't know where people are going to be at in terms of readings. So it might be good to help supplement what I do with a different kind of model. And it's been helpful. And, I've lost a few people along the way, but I've gained a few people too. So it's all good. And I really appreciate everybody and your kind words and your support. Let's see, who do we have here tonight? Who's in the house? Well, there's T. Jordan. What's going on, Thomas? Yep, Emily and I were in fine form on Friday. Jacqueline, hello. Let's see. There's Joe Mama. What's going on, Joe? I was talking with the Crimmies about you the other night. Maybe your ears were burning, but it was all good. It was all good. They told me about your crazy roommates. Very interesting. Pam Jerome, what's going on? There she is, all the way from way up there in Michigan. Kabuki Theater. I love the new trailer with Jasper today. I know it's good, right? So I've got a bunch of trailers up, and people have asked me about certain websites that I'm on. So I've got this wonderful person in England who's doing these really great excerpts and trailers from various shows. So I think I have 4 up now. I put 3 up today. One with the Crimmies, one with Sam, the Miracle Man, Shelley, who's right there in chat today or tonight, and then one with Tessa Dick on Philip K. Dick's chart, and then I had another one up already, and it was me and Howdy McCoskey. So people have been asking, well, where can I find you? You can find me over on Rumble, and let me show you where I am on Rumble. So here we go. That's me. I am Phoenix 1122 over on Rumble. And then you can see that I've got the excerpt with Sam Shelley, the Miracle Man. You can also find me over on YouTube, which I think is interesting. I want to explore YouTube a little bit more. And I know that you can stream live on YouTube. So that's really good as kind of a backup. And let me show you where I am on YouTube. I like YouTube. YouTube's a little radical. I like it. I would say it's extreme. I would say it's radical. Let me see where I am on YouTube. What do you got here? So here I am on YouTube, and I've got a few things over there. here. Here we go. So we've got Heidi McCoskey, and there's Tessa Dick, Phil's astrological chart, Sam Shelley, the Miracle Man, and of course the Friday Forecast, Crimmies, A Reset, Templars, Two Popes. So, and I put a few of them also up on YouTube and BitChute. So on YouTube, just for Robert Phoenix, I suppose. There we go. I joined 5 days ago. I have 4 uploads. I have 7 views and 0 subscribers. That's okay. Maybe I'll put controversial videos on YouTube. BitChute, I think you're still uploading the videos that I put up there today. I don't know. BitChute is painful. All right, let's see who else do we have here. Let's see. Oh, you guys are so sweet. Emily, I really enjoyed the Elisa Lam discussion. Ooh, yeah, Elisa Lam. Found her in a water tank. Let's see. Christy Daniels. Right there. You guys are digging on that MASH. Dang, they're a military drill team in here. I asked what's up with Biden striking Syria, and they both agreed that wasn't good. Oh, well, good. Good. Maybe this will wake people up. You know, it would be really nice if we saw some actual footage of that, wouldn't it? I feel like we're entering into 1984 when in the background of 1984, you'd always hear details about these wars. You never really knew what was going on. It was like, Trans-Pacifica and Asia. And, you would listen to it. I would listen to it like, well, weren't they fighting them like earlier on in the movie? And then now they're fighting with them against somebody else. And it would change all the time. It would change, but you would never see anything. You wouldn't see any footage. And even now, if we saw footage, it really, I mean, would we believe it? I mean, this is where we are right now. Would we believe the footage? No. They had images come from Mars and looked like Mars had chemtrails. Did you know Mars had chemtrails? Yeah, apparently so. Let's see who else do we have here. Laurel, just out of the bath, all cleaned up. Laurel's a Taurus. I bet you she had either bubble bath salts, or a very nice sort of bath oil, maybe some candles, and maybe a combination of all 4. I wonder if I'm right. Let's see. Who do we have? You guys are great. There's my man Thor by the door. There's Emily. There she is, the techno brat. Let's see. What do we have here? Paulette's in the house. There's Beth Berry. Susan Chappelle. Hello, Susan. How are you? Nice to see Myra Alexander. What's going on, Myra? There's Lils. Hola, Lils. Let's see. Here's Annie. What's going on, Ani? Ani sent me she sent me this really great link. Wow, it's really good. So I can find it. What is this? So that's the Crimmies. Let me see what Ani. She sent me this really great. So I have to find it. Where is that? Oh, it's not on here. Damn it, it's on my phone. Let me see. Oh, here it is. I found it. You guys gotta check this out. This is really cool. This is really cool. This is a hack right here. This is a total hack. Check this out. I'm going to play this for you. So Genevieve might have shared it initially, and maybe Ani passed it on. I don't know. I don't know who's going to take credit for this, but it's a good one. So let me I hope you guys can hear this. I might have to take this off. Hold on.
Find your 240. Remove the cover off your panel. Shut off the main breaker. This allows no electricity to come in from the meter when it comes back on. Shut off all your breakers. Take your cord, cut the tip off of it that doesn't fit. You'll find 4 wires, black, red, green, and white. Strip these down about 1 inch apiece. Once you got them stripped, find a 30 amp breaker, remove them, and hook the black to the black and the white to the white. Your green will go on your ground. Once you've got it wired in, green to the ground, red, black, white. Make sure your breakers are off. Start the generator. Generator started. Fuse is on. Keep the main fuse off. Voila, power.
Isn't
I'm going
that
to show you
cool?
how to hook your generator to your house when you don't have the right cords. Find your 240. Remove the cover off your panel. Shut off the main breaker. This allows no electricity to come in from the meter when it comes back on. Shut off all your breakers. Take your cord, cut the tip off of it that doesn't fit. You'll find 4 wires, black, red, green, and white. Strip these down about 1 inch apiece. Once you got them stripped, find a 30 amp breaker, remove them, and hook the black to the black and the white to the white. Your green will go on your ground. Once you've got it wired in, green to the ground, red, black, white. Make sure your breakers are off. Start the generator. Generator started. Fuse is on. Keep the main fuse off. Voila, power. I'm going to show you how to hook your generator
Pretty
to your
cool, huh?
house when you don't have the right cord.
There you go. There you go. Nice little hackaroo there. Just thought I'd share that with you. How many other astrology shows would give you an electrical hack just like that? Thank you, Ani, for passing on. Whoever in our little text group did that. Thank you. Kabuki Theater. What's happening? Let's see. Oh, Welsh Roses. Sage and Sweetgrass is back. Nice to see you, Bronwyn. JC, Johnny Cruz, MC, Michael Sister Nino. Oh my God, that's right. 2 housemates are they remorseful. It was Genevieve. Yes, I thought so. That's why I mentioned it. I gave you credit for something last time, and she was the one that actually sent it. So I was wanting to make sure that I was giving credit where credit was due. Ani being the honest Sag. Just pass that on over. Let's see. What else do we have here? There's Lois Wolf. Hey, Paula Tuttle. What's happening? Anna Shaban, nice to see you. What's going on down there in H-Town? Unicorn Way coming in from Sedona. Oh, we got some pistol packing mamas, not pistol packing, but they're hottest smoking pistols. Listening from Sedona. We got Lori and Scoobs, and they actually phoned me today on their way out to Sedona. And if you're a couple of red-blooded on the switched on but not soy side males, Lori and Amy are in Sedona, and might be interested in some enlightened company. I'm just saying. In any case, shout out to both of you. I hope you have a great time out there decompressing from Southern California. CC Jones, she's here. Miranda Couch, the Galactic Couch Surfer. Sanitarium Radio, shut the fuck up, Darcy. How you doing, Darcy? Hope you're doing well. It's nice to see you around here. There she is, Kathy Steen from South Dakota. Love Light Energetics. Have I looked into Foxhole? No, not yet. I just invested a large chunk of money into Vimeo. So I got to make Vimeo work. All these other places are places I can do stuff and put other content. And, maybe there are people that might stumble across some of the interviews that we do, things like that. That's what they're there for. And maybe a backup, but I'll check Foxhole out. Am I swamped for time to fit readings? And I have a lot of business right now. It's interesting dealing with a schedule, like a very intense schedule. The whole city council thing is about to ramp up. And I had an experience today. It was a very motivating experience. I'll share it tomorrow. I don't want to share it tonight. I'm still processing it. But it was a very motivating experience. It was an experience that's like, okay, I want to do something. Now I really need to do something. Have you ever gotten into a fight? I haven't gotten into a fight in a long time. But there's always that moment when you get into a fight and you get hit. And there's that feeling of, holy shit, I'm in a fight, right? That's an important moment. That's an important moment. And I kind of felt like that today in an offhand way. I'll share it tomorrow. I'm still processing. It's not bad, but it was an interesting moment. Am I still doing my show? Yes, Sherry, I'm going to do it. I just have to book it. I have to get it together. Get it together. It's NewTube, not YouTube. It is NewTube. NewTube. Let's see. Wow, those were shows that stuck to me, especially the Tessa Dick one. Yeah, that show with Tessa was great. Tessa streams every day on YouTube right after I do my show, in case you want to catch her. Sometimes she'll watch my show, and then she'll just go right into her show. And every now and then I just drop in and watch her talk and see what she's up to. But that was a really good show, and I really enjoyed looking at Phil's chart. That was really interesting. My handle on Rumble is Phoenix1122. What is NewTube? NewTube is a video service like YouTube, but it allows you to stream live. So it's a nice little tool to have in the back pocket. Now with Vimeo, we get chat. There's a whole bunch of other things with Vimeo that I still haven't really fully taken advantage of. I have Studio, which would allow me to have multiple cameras. How cool is that? So, there's a reason, there's a reason for having it. And if there isn't one, I'll make one up. Let's see. What else we have here? Gas 1123. I spent 150 on 50,000 in 2017. Sauna is at 180 right now. Ooh, man, that's serious. Doge got picked up by Flare Network. It should be okay. We get some Doge talk. David Vadap 2030 uses Vimeo to do Q&A for Patreon. Works good. Yeah. The thing about Patreon is, Vimeo, is that I'm going to be able to embed the code on my website and then stream off my website. That is key. That is key. Nurse Tara 04. What's going on? There's Masaki. Masaki, he's pumping Doge. He pumps Doge when he sleeps. I know that for a fact. No, I don't. Sedona's in high season. All welcome. D-Live seems pretty good. D-Live is a gamer channel. It's a gamer channel. I'm not crazy about lemons and all. I don't know. It wasn't my thing. Besides, it kicked Owen Benjamin off. Let's see. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else? We love our pistol packing visitors. Amy did a little shooting out here in Texas. Hey, Kevin, what's up, my man? Nice to see you. Yeah, Amy, she kind of had the hots for the shooting instructor. Rumor has it. I don't think anything came of that. Let's see. Anybody else here? Oh, we got Rob. We have Rob Chopra. Hey, what's going on, Robbie? What's happening, man? Good to see you. Okay, I think we're all present and accounted for. Quite frankly, is on D Live. Okay. I don't know. I'm not crazy about the interface. Just it's too gamey. It's too gamey for me. Lemons and I don't know. It's something like Venmo. I'm a Virgo. Okay, I'm a Virgo. I like sometimes I like simple shit. It doesn't mean I like interesting, complex, deep, layered things, which I do. But it's like I looked at Venmo. Everybody says, "Whoa, you got to get Venmo." It's Venmo to me is just it's PayPal for kids, really, because it's got all these little cute little things, and it's like it's just PayPal for kids. That's all it is. And I don't know. Is there no fees? I don't know. D Live to me felt like Venmo. Okay, Amy was motivated. She was motivated. What's going on, Jelena? Good for you. Michael's into Theta. Can't get Theta on whatchamacallit, Coinbase. All right. I think we're all here. We got a good number, 238. Cardano. I think Cardano is doing great, but it was removed. I think I couldn't find Cardano on Coinbase anymore. Maybe somebody can confirm that. Vimeo has some awesome videos. You know what else I can do with Vimeo? I can have my own channel on Roku. That's right. My own channel on Roku. Snake Jones, I think, is in hibernation mode. You know, I gotta tell you guys, I did an astrological reading for our friend Snake. I have never met a more archetypal looking Leo in my life. He's got Leo Sun at 20 degrees, conjunct the true node in Leo at 20 degrees. The guy looks like a freaking lion. He looks like a lion. I swear to God, he's the most archetypal looking Leo I've ever seen in my life. And what a great guy. Total great guy. Eventually, we will all be our own channel. Yeah. Don't hate the game or hate the game. If they give you lemons, make lemonade. Johnny, you should put that in a song. By the way, Johnny came up with a new tune. Maybe I'll play that this week. It's another good one. He's a hit machine. Johnny Cruz is a freaking hit machine. If you want a song done, just talk to Johnny. He'll create it for you. And, you know, a song for any occasion. Remember when I had that woman on about 2.5 years ago? She was really nice. And she did songs for like people's bar mitzvahs and stuff like that. Johnny, I think there's a market there for you. 23 McGraw, what's going on? Cardano's on uphold. Thank you. Thanks for that. Lori Seiler's here. Lori Seiler had a little adventure in her life, let me tell you. Maybe she'll tell you. Please do a channel on Roku. Actually, you're on Vimeo from 2011 on Roku now. Ooh, how about that? Leo risings have a nice head of hair. Snake is Aquarius rising, but he still has the mane. It's got to be that true. Any predictions on the stock market this week? Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight is I pulled the chart for when Bretton Woods happened in 1971. So in May of 1971, Richard Nixon met with Henry Kissinger at Camp David. I believe it was Camp David. And they decided that they were going to take the US dollar off the gold standard and tie it to all the oil purchases coming out of Saudi Arabia. Now, the Saudi Arabians had to agree to this. They had to agree that the United States dollar was going to be the default dollar to purchase oil from Saudi Arabia. So if you're French or British Petroleum, you wanted to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, you had to convert your pounds into dollars in order to do that. And that was on August 15th, 1971. I'm going to look at the chart tonight for when that happened. There's some very interesting things going on with that chart. Now, one of the reasons why I'm going to talk about that is because we are reaching the end of the petrodollar. You can begin to see it a bit astrologically, which I'll show. But if we move into the Green New Deal, what is the Green New Deal all about? It's about not having petroleum anymore. It's about eliminating petroleum. I'm not calling it fossil fuels because they're not fossil fuels. And it's all about renewables. So why does the dollar have to be the dominant de facto world currency? It won't be. That's part of the reason why the Green New Deal is being instituted, so that it can dismantle the US dollar. Had you figured that one out yet? Apparently, Biden signed some EOs that are going to affect the supply chain. So I think we're going to have supply chain issues. As far as the market goes, the market is going to be erratic. It's going to spike. It's going to continue to go up and down, up and down, up and down. It's being driven by algorithms. It's being driven by whales. So you're going to see, I think, more peaks and valleys with the market, and deep valleys, canyons. And, you know, it's sort of what we're seeing also in the Bitcoin space and the crypto space. We can see these massive sort of crater-like dips and then spiking up again because people are selling and buying on the dip. I think there's going to be some of that in the market as well. But we're in a bad place financially. We just had another stimulus package. What is this, number 3 now? I mean, Jesus, how much more stimulus do they need? That at some point, they're just it's not money's not going to be worth anything because of all the dollars that they have to print in order to do it. Just won't be worth anything. So I think we're going to continue to see these kind of seismic moments. Last week we had 2 big moments where the Federal Reserve shut down, probably moving money, because the Federal Reserve, remember, is connected to the Treasury. Now you notice that Joe Biden didn't sign that executive order. He kind of left that one alone. Remember that was the executive order that Trump passed. I think it was just prior to the first stimulus package. And the Treasury, the U.S. Treasury, being run by BlackRock Investment. What's the guy's name? Larry Fink or something like that. Larry Fink. How do you feel about somebody in charge of the country's money with the last name of Larry Fink? I don't have a great feeling about that. Let's see. Yeah, Larry Fink. What is Larry's sign? He's a Scorpio. He's got those Scorpio eyes. Scorpios have those slitty eyes. Yeah. You got them slitty eyes. Them slitty Scorpio eyes. I don't know about Larry Fink. Here you go. These are the, oh, look at him. He's at the World Economic Forum. You know who else has those eyes is Greg Abbott. There's your kind of slitty Scorpio eyes right there. Right there. Here you go. Oh, there we go. There's your reptilian slitty Scorpio eyes. Oh, look, they're humanizing him a little bit. Isn't that cute? Looking way more serious there. Oh, he's got a nice little gif. How about that? It's the guy that's in charge of the United States Treasury, basically. BlackRock. Here, I'll show you Greg Abbott's slitty Scorpio eyes. See, this is what I'm talking about. Right here. He's really got him. He's really got him. See it right there? Right there. See? And these are wide, but they're still kind of slitty. See? Right there. That's how you can tell Scorpios. They've got those slitty eyes. Scorpio eyes is a little bit different, as we've talked about before. Now Abbott has moved on from, who's this? Is that Trump and Abbott? Yeah, there's Trump. Trump is a man that Greg Abbott looks up to. He's moved on from trying to find out who the bad guys were in the energy debacle to pushing how great he's doing with the vaccine in the state of Texas. Way to go, Greg. Way to change the narrative. He looks up to everyone. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Seems they're using Jeremy Lin as their poster boy. What's up with Jeremy Lin now? Let's see. Yeah, Masaki sent me a story that they burned a Buddhist temple in LA. Yeah. Green energy investment, utilities, VUIAX, March 26th, Joe and Kamala out and Nancy in. Trump was good at CPAC. Trump is always good. Trump is always good. Hi, Marianne Smith. Yeah, Asians are on the chopping block. I hate to say it. They're not on the chopping block, but they're, first they came for Whitey. Nobody said anything. Now they're gonna come after the Asians. Now they're gonna come after the Asians. Why? Because the Asians are now privileged. Oh, they're a privileged class. And I was going to talk about this tomorrow, but I may as well talk about it tonight. In Massachusetts, there is of course, she's a school administrator, and of course, she's woke. One of these, I don't know, director of equity, director of intersectional equity linguistics or some shit like that, with their made up titles. They have these made up titles now. We used to see them in the internet, in the .com world. So I used to work for a company where people made up their own titles. I used to work for this one guy. His title was Director of Possibilities. I actually like that. Director of Possibilities. He actually got me my gig at eMusic and had the same birthday as I did. Thank you very much, Sean. Hope you're well. But in Massachusetts now, they're going to stop offering accelerated programs for gifted students. You're not going to get that. Why? Because they're based in inequality and racism. And who do you think, just by statistics and data, not solely now, I'm not going to make a blanket statement here, not solely, but let's just say you are one of those quote unquote gifted groups. Probably you're going to be, in most cases, but not all cases, I have to qualify this. Let's say you're Caucasian, certainly Asian, probably Indian, right? Because we have found that Indians and Asians, by and large, work extremely hard, are dedicated to studies, and tend to trend much higher in scores. That said, you could be African American, you could be Mexican, you could be Colombian, and you could be gifted, and you could be in need of a program because it would be good for you. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get accelerated. Would you be the majority in terms of who that would probably impact? No. But I guarantee you there'd be people from those cultures or from those ethnic groups. They would show up, but they're not going to get the chance now to get accelerated. Why? Because it's not equitable. So you're gonna, and I think they actually changed the designation now for Asians, right? So it's kind of like okay, well, we've taken care of this group over here. We know that they're racist. We don't have to worry about them anymore. So who's next on our list? So I think, oh yeah, I think we're after the Asians next. Let's get the Asians next. Yeah. Well, then after the Asians, it'll probably be the Indians and so on and so on and so on. At first they came for so and so, and then they came for so and so, and then they came for so and so, and then eventually they came for me, and there was nobody there for me. This is where it's headed, and we're losing all objectivity when it comes to this. Let's see what else we have here. Just more polarized, divide and conquer program. It's true, but it's more than that. It's more than that. What they're trying to do ultimately is to dumb down society. They're doing a very good job of it. They don't want people to be really smart and educated and innovative. And if they are, they're only going to give you what the state wants you to have. It's all going to be within the parameters of state-sponsored education. They don't want individuality anymore. They don't want excellence. They don't want a meritocracy. I mean, all that stuff is out the window. It's gone. It's gone. They will not reward a meritocracy any longer. All right, let's try to bring this into some astrology. So you guys, there are people actually coming for astrology, and I actually do talk about astrology. I did a little bit. All right, let's do our little invocation here, and let's just let's be present. Let's be present. Okay. Dear blessed and holy Mother, Father God, of the great central sun within the universal light, which is the light of Yeshua, Sananda, Emmanuel, we ask that only the highest and best information, truth, and wisdom come through this channel at this time. And we affirm and decree the qualities of patience, presence, calmness, collectedness, awareness, perception, space-time, flexibility, elasticity, mutability, concentration, focus, adventure, expansion, joy, humor, and above all, love. We ask that any karmic residue be cleansed, purified, clarified, and removed from the stream. Okay, let's get going. I had a really good conversation with our friend Masaki yesterday, and we talked about how he was feeling over the last few weeks. And Mr. Akita is a Scorpio, so he doesn't really show a lot of his cards, and that's fine. But we had a really candid conversation, and he was sharing with me some of the things that I've been feeling and what other people have been feeling, and that's a sense of real displacement. And if he's feeling it, and I know he's sensitive and attuned, but he's going to feel it in a very amplified kind of way. I'm feeling it. I've felt that displacement since January 6th, right after January 6th, I was like really sort of displaced by what happened at that time. And it's taken me a while to get my feet under me, and I'm still working on it. These are challenging, very challenging times. This is like quicksand we're living in right now. So one of the things that I wanted to, we're in this month of Pisces, and Pisces is one of those signs where I feel like it's a time of being and not doing. The astrological calendar is starting to run out. We're getting ready to have that reset when we hit the spring equinox with Aries, and that's a doing time. right? But Pisces tends to be more of a being time. And I feel like, here we are, and we're just coming onto this Virgo moon, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It's not quite full. We're coming off the full moon, by the way. And the Virgo moon is critical. It's a critical moon, but we're coming off the peak now. And, really for the next 30 days or 20, 26 days, because we've been in, well, no, we're right here, right now, right? 23rd. It's the 23rd. So 5 days. So we're talking another 25 days. So for the next 25 days, it's really more just about being and trying to be more of the shape versus the shaper. So what does that mean? It means that you have to find sort of your own level over the next 25 days. And whatever that level is. I mean, if you feel like you're burnt out and you need time out, just do it. Right? Just do it. If you feel like you need to move on from certain things for a while, whether they're technology, the internet, certain types of stimulation or groups or people or whatever that is, do it. This is a time of, not necessarily, trying to bend the river. Now, that said, Pisces can be a really powerful force too. It can be an incredibly powerful force when you allow that energy, where you allow that inner direction to move you. But with Pisces, it really feels like the universe always has the first move versus Aries, where it's like, you've got the first move. You're in charge of this. You need to take the reins. But this is really not that time. And remember, we're winding down the astrological new year. So usually when Pisces comes around, there's not a lot of energy left in the year. We have that kind of major time around the winter solstice where there is energy. I mean, there's kind of an darkening energy, but there's energy there. And we're around the holidays. It's usually a very busy and festive time, except for last year, of course. Last year was a travesty. And then we get to New Year's Eve. Generally, unlike last year where we had virtual New Year's, but those times are energetic. And even when we move into the first of the year, again, this is classically sort of the classic calendrical cycle. People said, "Oh, wow, last year was. I'm glad it's over. I'm glad it's over. I can't wait." Well, I was like, 2020 was so shocking, and it was like, okay, all right, what's coming next? 2021, and 2021 is like 2020. Hold my beer, and it's kind of been that way. So normally we have these kinds of moments of energy at the beginning of the year, and then it sort of flattens out a little bit. And then it really flattens out and kind of gets into this sort of valley. This Marianas Trench in Pisces. No, I'm just using an oceanic metaphor, but that's what happens. The energy of the astrological new year is fading, so that by the time we get to like those last degrees of Pisces, it's just all kind of slipping away. It's all slipping away, and it's a really good time to let go of things. So this is the month where theoretically we are getting ready for rebirth, because the rebirth happens here in the northern hemisphere with the spring equinox. So this is these last few days, these last few weeks in the astrological calendar are really important. And it's much better to live in more of a yin capacity than a yang capacity. But that said, if you have the right kind of momentum, or you have the right kind of current or wave behind you, it can be very powerful. But you're not going to be the shaper. You will be the shaped during this time of year. You just have to find sort of the right place or the right current or catching the right wave. And not every wave, you don't catch, I used to surf, you don't catch every wave. You might have 3 waves, you might miss them, and you might get a really good one. So I would say that this month, just in general, without even looking at the chart at the moment, not to put too much pressure on yourself, because there's enough pressure already. There's so much pressure that's in the world right now. In fact, it feels like we're in these bathyspheres and we're descending, and when you get down into those areas of the ocean, you don't have to go very far. I mean, what is it, like maybe 1,000 feet, and things start to get crushed, like a tomato can. It's pretty, you don't have to go very deep. But, we're starting to feel like that because it feels like these walls are sort of closing in on us in this submersible kind of realm that we're in right now. So try not to put any pressure on yourself, any undue pressure. You don't really need that at this point in time. And it was really interesting on Friday, when Emily and I were talking, and she was talking about creating your own reality. And I brought up this concept of transformation, redemption, resurrection. And I was talking about Christ energy. And it had some very interesting reactions in the chat room. And but that's very Piscean too, right? So you have people that are drowning, and they're drowning in spirit. And what do they need? They need a lifeline. They need a rope. And I've seen it when people have been in those places, and I've seen when they weren't too proud, including myself, to ask for help and divine intervention, and it will come. It will come. And I'm not ascribing it to any, religious doctrine, or I'm not going to say, well, you got to be a Lutheran, or you got to be a Baptist, you're going to be one of these groups in order to get it. When I got it, I wasn't part of those groups. And I certainly didn't go out and seek to become one of those groups or a member of one of those groups, because this thing it's non-denominational. It's really what it was all about. When theoretically, this model, this entity, this avatar, this being laid out a particular model. And it's there, right? It is there. And you may not believe in the historical figure. You don't have to. I've seen it. I've experienced it. I've had other people. I've seen it with other people too. And their lives have improved remarkably as a result of it. So, this, and I was talking with our friend Kavenna, who is a really gifted psychic and a teacher up in Portland. We were talking yesterday, and I'm going to have her on the show here next couple of weeks. And she was teaching a psychic awareness class, and so she decided to bring out pieces of scripture from the Bible. Now, she is not a Christian in that way. She wasn't like proselytizing, and she wasn't trying to get people to go to church on Sundays. But what she was doing was she was finding passages that she thought would be helpful for people in terms of understanding that there's something beyond the physical body, facing their fear, and trying to get into the deeper level of the meaning behind certain passages. And for quite a few people in her group, they got triggered because there's a lot of triggering around religion. And I don't blame these people, because a lot of people have been traumatized by religion. Almost everybody has to some extent. But once she was able to sort of work through it and separate some of the things out and look at those passages from a vibrational perspective, it began to shift them. And they began to see that material in a different light. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because that's Piscean. We're talking about the Piscean age, and we're coming to the end of the Piscean age, and they're going to drag us into the Aquarian age, whether we like it or not. If we do get into the Aquarian age, it would be nice if it was on our own terms. And I think to some extent it will be. It'll be a competing model between what's going to be offered in one version of it, and there's another version of it. And there is going to be risks and rewards for being a part of both, or being a part of one. Now, maybe it'd be cool if you can move between both. I don't know. You'd have to be pretty pretty special, because I think there would be one version of it that might be very exclusive, in that it would be tied to technology in a way that you would sort of be bound by it. But maybe that's what Neo and the Matrix is all about, and being able to move between those worlds. One world where he's in it and one world where he's not in it, theoretically, right? Anyway, when we were in Pisces, it's also, it's a time where, you know, we're dealing with a lot of history, a lot of baggage, um, a lot of tropes, a lot of symbolism that we associate with the sign. And of course, we get things like, you know, sacrifice, betrayal, and scapegoating, and resurrection, and universal love, and transcendence. These are all really important things. And whether or not you're a Christian or not, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does to some extent, but these are elements that are part of the human story, regardless of whether you're a dyed-in-the-wool Christian or you have issues around it or not. But it comes through that, right? It's just that it's that Piscean kind of version. Now, I don't want to get into too much of religious discourse here about the three Abrahamic faiths, but I just wanted to, you know, kind of connect it back to Pisces and, you know, where we are. And, you know, it's a sign where you can see a lot of very extreme things as well. So over the next 30 days, I would not be surprised if we see a lot of extreme conditions. You know, you'll get stories of the miraculous, and you'll get stories of the absolute hideous and the absurd, and you know, the transcendent. You just keep your eyes out and watch what happens over the next 25 days. You'll see Pisces happen in all of its dualistic potential. You've got Kether to Malkuth, right? Malkuth being the crown, Kether being the root, and everything in between. But I would say, by and large, it's a good time not to push. Now, we are going to get Mars and Gemini coming up here pretty soon, and that's going to be crazy, because Mars and Gemini is going to come in and it's going to stir things up. But you think you're going to be able to get a timeout? In some ways, I really hope you can. And if that's what you have to listen to in terms of your spirit, and you need that, right? It's better, again, to kind of let go and go with the flow with Pisces versus, you know, trying to swim upriver. But with Mars and Gemini, it's going to get crazy. It's going to get fucking crazy. I'm telling you right now. And why don't we bring in the chart of the moment just to see what we're looking at there? Yeah, we're at 10 degrees Pisces right now. Moon in Libra. We just came out of Virgo. All right, let's check it out. You know, Mars is at 28 Taurus, so it's going to go into Gemini this week. First thing it's going to do, it's going to trine Saturn. That's interesting. That is interesting. Okay, let's go to the chart of the moment. What's it for? Here, I got to change that. I had a client on Saturday night. Great young guy. Really great young guy. Family guy, trying to relocate and find a safe place for he and his family. Did a little relocation astrology. It's very interesting. Very interesting. He was a firefighter. Aries on the ascendant. Does that make sense? I thought it did. All right. Let's do the chart of the moment. I guess what I'm saying is with the Piscean stuff is that don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to deep, go deep down inside and ask for help. It's okay. It's really okay. It's an option. Don't be too proud. And if you feel like you're drowning or you feel like you're kind of looking for a little direction, just ask Sam. And Sam did it in a kind of a non-denominational. He just meditated, which is good too. But sometimes meditation is listening and prayer is asking. Be surprised what comes back. All right, here we go. We got a nice grand trine kicking in right now. There is Mars at 28 degrees, getting ready to go into Gemini for the next roughly 48 hours. The moon is going to be in a nice little trine, actually the next 24 hours. Nice trine with Saturn, Mercury, Jupiter. The beginning of the week will be good. There's going to be, even though we're in a weird time, this week starts off pretty well. Moon and Libra, seeking balance, harmony. It always goes well with Aquarius, which is trying to connect people to people to people to people to people. And with the moon there, it's easier, right? People can kind of put their egos aside. That wasn't the case at the anaretic moon earlier today, what I went through. I'll talk about tomorrow, though. We do have some inconjuncts going on, at least right now. They're going to be brief. They're not happening. It's not huge. Venus in conjunct moon, right there, 4-4. And then we have Uranus in conjunct the moon as well. Yeah, that's interesting. We got that Venus sextile to Uranus. So this would be kind of a classic yod right here. We've talked about yods before. Reconciling the sort of the broken path of one planet with another. What is the relationship between Libra and Pisces? Or in this case, Libra and Taurus. Well, with Libra and Taurus, same ruler, Venus, but not in some ways. It's that 150-degree angle. So we're dealing with the mystery, right? In conjunction mysteries. They're mysteries. So to me, I mean, the energy tonight would be kind of centered around relationship and people, trying to figure out in some ways, is their path with another person right here, right? Will I find quote unquote emotional connection with another? Can I find something that's balanced? Will this happen? Will this occur? And with Uranus in conjunct the moon, it's kind of a wild card. And things get kind of put into play here, which is sort of interesting. So who knows? Maybe Lori and Scoobs and Sedona might actually have a really good time. They'll have a good time regardless, but you know what I'm saying. Also, the moon in conjunct Uranus, a lot of that has to do with the home and nurturing and feeling grounded and feeling safe, right? Because the moon is safety and security, and you got an in conjunct with Uranus. It's a little disturbing. It's like kind of like a houseboat without a rudder, so to speak. So that's going on, and so I would think that perhaps issues of security, issues of connecting and harmony and reciprocity, they're all kind of in the air, at least for right now. By the time tomorrow comes up, who knows what other people are feeling outside of the 300 people that are watching this show. But again, the moon, I like the moon in Libra. I like the nice grand trine we've got going on. It's a good way to start the week. So I think we're going to have a little less tension on the emotional front, but I still think that there's some conflict going on. Of course, that's right there. We've got Uranus and Saturn just, grinding right now. And I looked at the last time Uranus and Saturn were square last week on my show during the week. If you didn't catch that, I talked about in the time in 1977 when Uranus was in Scorpio and Saturn was in Leo. So it's almost like the opposite of where we are now. And well, in fact, it is the opposite because Uranus is in Taurus and Saturn is in Aquarius. And I went back and I looked at that time, and it's really a time of major evolution. Like you go back to 1977 and you'll see things that change the world. It changed the things that changed the course of history in a huge way. You had the Apple IIc computer hitting the market. You had the Tandy 500 hitting the market. You had Oracle incorporating. What else? ARPANET got off the ground. So that's the beginning of the internet. There's a lot of home computing, database sorts of database orientation, database technology, because that's what Oracle will become known for, are their databases or ability to dominate the database market, which is really important in terms of storing and correlating energy, making energy, information, projections, things like that. And then, of course, the beginning of the internet. So that's all really evolutionary. That's a really evolutionary cycle. And we're in a de-evolutionary cycle, which I talked about. This is we can just, I mean, back then it was like, okay, well, let's get a computer in every home and let's get our kids educated and we're going to ramp up and everybody's going to be smart. Everybody's going to be smart. You look at those early computer commercials and they were pushing computers for kids. They were pushing, oh, by the way, computer games were also taken up. The first color computerized game was in 1977. And Chuck E. Cheese Pizza opens at night. Yeah, all right. It's not all great, but that was Nolan Bushnell, the guy who started Atari, and he decided he got out of Atari. I'm going to start Chuck E. Cheese. The guy was pretty genius. He also came up with Teddy Ruxpin. Anyway, that was all. This was expanding. It was evolutionary. And now we're de-evolutionary. Now it's like, well, don't use critical thinking. Critical thinking will take you down the rabbit hole. You don't want to go down the rabbit hole, okay? Don't use critical thinking, please. Don't use cursive. No, we're not going to teach cursive. Your cursive does something important to the brain. Cursive is flowing. I was never a very good cursive writer, by the way, but it does something to the brain. It connects the hemispheres of the brain. That's what cursive does, because you're using language, which is for one hemisphere, and you're using kind of an artistic expression, which is from another hemisphere. It connects the brain. And when you don't do cursive, you're just doing, standard block letters. You're really kind of one-sided on the brain. Anyway, and let's get rid of those programs for kids. Those accelerated programs. See, it's all de-evolutionary now. It's all de-evolutionary. Dumb down the masses. Just dumb them down. It's like, okay, it's over. We gave you all the toys. You helped us make trillions of dollars. We were very, very charmed by some of your creations, but now it's over. And we're going to control the technology. Back then, it was like, we're going to give you the technology. You're in control. You've got the computer. Go ahead. You develop. That's kind of ending right now. And that's really the crux of this Saturn-Uranus. There's more to it than that, obviously. But all you got to do is look back, 1977, that last square, it was all about expansion. It was all about possibility. It was all about evolution. And now we're into de-evolution, which is incredibly, I don't really have words for it. As a human, it's a travesty. It's really a fucking travesty that we're having to deal with now. This, God, it's almost like a 17th century attitude. That's what it feels like. It feels like we're now dealing with a 17th century attitude, and they just want to turn people back into serfs again. It's like, okay, we're done. You guys are getting, we're coming to that moment. We're coming to that Utnapishna moment with Enki and Enlil. And Enlil's looking around and saying, you guys are getting too fucking smart. We gotta pull the curtains on this. That's what's happening. That is what's happening. And the idea of taking us back into the dark ages, which is really what this is about. That's about as clear as I can articulate it, is that they want to take humanity back into the dark ages, where things like reason and logic and rationality and truth, they're all going to be in the back of the bus. They're all going to be in the back of the bus. What's going to be in front of the bus? Superstition. What else? Envy. Mm-hmm. Superstition, envy, fear. Jealousy. I mean, all these really negative emotions, bitterness, resentment, all those things are going to be in the front of the bus. Those are going to be driving the bus, and everything else is in the back of the bus now. And it's stunning to see how quickly a lot of these ideals and possibilities became hijacked. It's amazing, breathtaking, the speed of it. And I think, for me, the key event is 9/11. It's 9/11. There's 9/11 is the modern, AD and BC. There's everything pre 9/11 and everything after 9/11. And everything after 9/11 was this entropic decay to where we are now. It started up here, and here's where we're going. We're just sliding right off the edge here. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they fucking lied to us about 9/11. And when that happens, then you deal with the consequences. And you have lie piled on lie, 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 piled on lie. And now all of a sudden, we are standing precariously on a mountain of lies. And this is what we built civilization on since 9/11, 2001. Here we have the Saturn-Uranus square, and the walls are going to come tumbling down. But before they do, this is all about the de-evolutionary moment. Don't go to that website. That website's bad for you. No, don't listen to that YouTube channel. Why are you listening to that person? That's conspiratorial. And what's interesting now is that the mainstream media has gotten hip to the conspiratorial trip, because they will go out and they will write stories now. Like, they were ahead of this thing with what happened in Texas. And I think it was the New York Times was writing about how people were claiming that what happened with Texas and other parts of the country, it's not just Texas, wasn't just the polar front, the polar vortex, but there was there were shenanigans involved. We're talking weather chicanery. We're talking things like HARP and weather modification. It's out there. We've seen it. It's real. There's documents. Bill Gates has talked about it. You got that guy from Harvard who's working on it. This shit's real. The United States Air Force had a program around weather modification. Chinese used it. They used it for the Olympics. They had the Winter Olympics in China, and it was artificial. Well, it wasn't all artificial, but a lot of it was artificial. They wanted to maintain winter-like conditions in China. Don't tell me that can't happen. Of course it can. Here I am running for city council. That's gonna go over real well, won't it? He's one of those guys that believes in chemtrails. It's gonna be fun. I'm telling you. Anyway, but they're getting out in front of it now, right? They're discrediting people who talk about it. Why? Because we're getting really close to the bone. And they don't want people, again, they want to put us back in the box. They want to have that, they want to have that flood moment, right? It's like Enlil's had it. It says, I've had it. They're too smart. They're too clever. We got to shut them down. Got to shut them down. And that's just one version. And we're kind of in that time now. Can you feel it? They just want to collapse. Want to collapse everything. They want to invert everything. They don't want to reward things like curiosity and novelty. Again, this is part of that square right there. All you got to do is look back to 1977. Just look at that time and look at just the possibilities. And here we are. We're at the transverse moment of 1977. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen. It doesn't mean it's going to work. But it does mean that getting through this time is not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy because we have been engaged for the most part in this potential of expansion, the expansion of the human spirit, expanding into space, expanding into, the cyber world and the possibilities, but we're coming out of an expansive period. We're in the fourth turning. Everything is going underground. Everything is moving into this wintry time. There's going to be a spring, but we're in the winter of the planet right now. We're certainly in the winter of the United States. So this is a time of endurance. We're going to have to endure to get through this time. And in a time here with Pisces, there's also the potential to kind of, maybe find another way to not, to be the shaped and not be the shaper, at least during the next 23, 24 days. That should be less than that. It'd be 20 days at this point, because then we move into Aries. So anyway, I think this week is going to start off on a good note. It's always nice to have like a grand trine coming in on a Monday with the moon in Libra, perhaps a bit more harmonious. Let's put it that way, a bit more harmonious, because Monday's Moon Day. So where the moon is on Monday, I think, is kind of important, at least in my humble estimation. We still have the squares. We're still working that stuff out. And then here's the wild card right here. Mars getting ready to move into Gemini. Let's take a look at that. All right. So here we go. Here's our handy dandy ephemeris. And we can see that Mars moves into Gemini on 5/5. Oh, that's Joan's birthday. A lot of Pisces birthdays this month. Surrounded by Pisces. Here we are, pretty early, straight out of the gate. What we really want to keep an eye on is the square to Neptune. And we have Neptune right here, 2021. So we're not going to get into that heavy-duty Mars square. It's called a 5-degree orb until April 1st. But the thing with Mars and Gemini is that it's really restless. Very, very restless. It doesn't, maybe that's going to be a good energy for people that are sick and fucking tired of locking themselves up in their homes or walking around with a face diaper. Maybe this Mars and Gemini energy will actually be good and might be, a little bit more devil's advocate like, right? So let's see what we have here. This is going to be an interesting time right here, conjuncting the true node and getting into at that time, kind of a wide square with Neptune, that Mars true node energy. That's going to be very interesting. Wow. Coming at you with both barrels, right? Two intense blasts of parallel realities with that Mars true node conjunction. And opposing the South Node as well, which is, if you wanted to play outside the lines, that's the time to do it. Just saying. Let's see. It's going to be interesting because Mars is going to be in Gemini for most of this kind of pre-election period, which I think will be good for me, since it'll be in my 7th house. Be good for debating. And then, when is it? May 1st? Mars in Cancer. When my Mars return right around that time. I don't know how that's going to shake out, especially since I have Mars in the 8th house. I don't know how that's going to shake out. A lot of Capricorn energy right there, Moon in Capricorn. And then we have a lot of Taurus energy at the beginning of May, obviously May Day. I think that's when the election is, if I'm not mistaken. But that Mars could be good for me, just saying. But it's a little argumentative. It's a little argumentative in my 7th house. We'll see how that goes. But I think this time is going to be, especially with that square to Neptune, man, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be a crazy square. And, the thing with Mars-Neptune squares, and we're going to get into that with Kristi Noem. I think she has one. But Mars-Neptune squares they're not always best for confidence. And people can act out of a place of distortion with Mars-Neptune squares. They're acting to kind of overcome something. They're acting to overcome, like if you have a disability and you've got a Mars-Neptune square in your chart, that might not be a bad thing, right? Because you would have to act to overcome something. But if you don't have that, and you have, kind of a Mars-Neptune square going on, and everybody will, what are we trying to overcome? What sort of things are we going to be tilting at windmills with? That's another real kind of Mars-Neptune square. Mars-Neptune squares also have a lot to do with addiction. And I've seen people that Mars-Neptune squares have, some kind of addiction problem. And it's not the best for self-esteem either, Mars-Neptune squares. You can overcome it. That's what squares are about, but it's harder. You've got kind of a deficit to begin with. And the key with any squares to Neptune is you've got to cut off the effects of Neptune. You have to recognize them. And we've talked about that before. Venus-Neptune squares, you have to cut off your ability to enable people and to fall for codependent stories out of some misguided sense of wanting to help. Or, getting some kind of love that you're probably worth a lot more than, but actually wind up settling for and having a dysfunctional relationship as a result. Moon-Neptune squares, they can be challenging around your home. And people that have Moon-Neptune squares can kind of live under they begin to accept a certain kind of standard of living for themselves in some ways. And it usually has to be due to some, emotional either impoverishment or deficit that's been inherited from the mother. And people who have Moon-Neptune squares wind up becoming caretakers, but they don't always know how to take care of themselves. So they're always, kind of placing the emotional needs of others before them, and even financial needs in a lot of ways. And there can be a lot of justification with Neptune squares. With Mercury, it's about how you think and agreements with people. Sometimes people have Mercury-Neptune squares. They play fast and loose with the truth. Sometimes others play fast and loose with the truth with them. It's also the mind works very differently. The mind does not work in sort of a typical way. Sometimes the mind can be very distracted with Mercury-Neptune squares. Who knows? It might be good for delving into that and maybe writing or figuring out sort of the fictions that you live with inside of your head. Sun-Neptune squares have a lot, again, to do with confidence and sacrificing who you are in a lot of ways for other people. And Sun Neptune squares can be very kind, but again, what are you being kind for? And who's moving ahead as a result of your kindness? So we're going to have this Mars Neptune square coming up. That's one of those squares that on a collective level, it could be devastating. That's a square that could be demoralizing. That could be a demoralizing square where we're all feeling like, oh fuck, like just defeat. So be careful. Be careful with the Mars Neptune square coming up. But with the Mars conjunction to the true node, that's also kind of interesting too, because it favors adaptability and very fast adaptability. So thinking on your feet, acting on your feet, those sorts of things. So that's what we've got coming, the lay of the land, at least for the next few weeks. But I think in terms of money, I think we're gonna see a lot of weird stuff, a lot of peaks and valley stuff, a lot of dips, and a lot of Matterhorns, and you might be able to see them in a matter of 2 days, 3 days. And I think what we're seeing with like Visa, MasterCard shutting down for a day, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that. In fact, with that Mars Neptune square, I wouldn't be surprised if people's EBT cards get shut down for a period of time. And they'll do that. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that, just to see how people will react, because they do shit like that. Well, what would happen if we turned the EBT cards off for 24 hours? What do you think would happen? Well, why don't we find out? They could do that. They could totally do that. So don't let them hijack your energy. Don't let them hijack your spirit. It's very important, especially if we're going to be dealing with the potential for a really demoralizing social event. You can't give them that power. You can't give them that power. It's just, you can't do it. Can't do it. All right. Where are we here? America's cult, I think, prancing gain in popularity. Okay. You guys got your own little thing going on. You're great. Okay. Let's talk about Kristi Noem. Let's get into Kristi Noem. Okay. First of all, let me play a little Kristi Noem from, what was it, yesterday? Let's play that. This woman's a total rock star. Okay, here we go. So let's just watch Kristi Noem in action. We'll watch maybe about, I don't know, about 4 minutes of this. Okay, here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. Hi.
Okay, lady in red, power color. Let's just set the stage. Here we go.
Good afternoon. You all look wonderful. Well, it is such an honor to be with all of you here today. My guest, oh, thank you. Now listen. My guess is that a year ago, most of you had no idea who I was. But unlike the DC media, I'm sure that you all at least know that there are 2 Dakotas, and that I'm the governor of the warmer one. Now, I'm here today to share some of the lessons from my state. I think the main question that needs to be answered this weekend is, why does America need conservatives? Now, the question of why America needs conservatives can be answered by just mentioning one single year, and that year is 2020. Now, everybody knows that almost overnight, we went from a roaring economy to a tragic nationwide shutdown. By the beginning of 2020, President Trump had created 7 million new American jobs. We had the lowest unemployment rate in over half a century, and unemployment rates for Black, Hispanic, and Asian Americans reached the lowest levels in history. More than 10 million people had been lifted out of poverty and out of welfare, and all of that changed in March. Now, most governors shut down their states. What followed was record unemployment, businesses closed, most schools were shuttered, and communities suffered. And the US economy came to an immediate halt. Now, let me be clear, COVID didn't crush the economy. Government crushed the economy. And then, just as quickly, government turned around and held itself out as the savior. And frankly, the Treasury Department can't print money fast enough to keep up with Congress's wish list. But not everyone has followed this path. For those of you who don't know, South Dakota is the only state in America that never ordered a single business or church to close. We never instituted a shelter-in-place order. We never mandated that people wear masks. We never even defined what an essential business is, because I don't believe that governors have the authority to tell you that your business isn't essential. Now, South Dakota schools are no different than schools everywhere else in America, but we approached the pandemic differently. From the earliest days of the pandemic, our priority was the students, their well-being, and their education. When it was time to go back to school in the fall, we put our kids in the classroom. Teachers, administrators, parents, and the students themselves were of one mind to make things work for our children. And the best way to do that was in the classroom. Now, in South Dakota, I provided all of the information that we had to our people, and then I trusted them to make the best decisions for themselves, for their families, and in turn, their communities. We never focused on the case numbers. Instead, we kept our eye on hospital capacity. Now, Dr. Fauci, he told me that on my worst day, I'd have 10,000 patients in the hospital. On our worst day, we had a little over 600. Now,
Quoted Fauci.
I don't know if you agree with me, but Dr. Fauci is wrong a lot. Even in a pandemic, public health policy needs to take into account people's economic and social well-being. Daily needs still need to be met. People need to keep a roof over their heads. They need to feed their families, and they still need purpose. They need their dignity. Now, my administration resisted the call for virus control at the expense of everything else. We looked at the science, the data, and the facts, and then we took a balanced approach. Truthfully, I never thought that the decisions that I was making were going to be unique. I thought that there would be more who would follow basic conservative principles, but I guess I was wrong. Ask yourself this question: how far will people go to enforce mask mandates? Once you start lockdowns, how long can you sustain them? In South Dakota, we had some cases in March and April, but the virus didn't really hit the Midwest until late fall. Should we have kept people in their homes from March onward? Of course not. You know, it's important to ask these questions. We have to show people how arbitrary these restrictions are, and the coercion, the force, and the anti-liberty steps that governments take to enforce them. Often, the enforcement isn't based on facts. Justifying these mitigation efforts has been anything but scientific. Now, many in the media, they criticized South Dakota's approach. They labeled me as ill-informed, that I was reckless, and even a denier. Some even claimed that South Dakota was as bad as it gets anywhere in the world when it comes to COVID-19. That is a lie. The media did all of this while simultaneously praising governors who issued lockdowns, who mandated masks and shut down businesses, applauding them as having taken the right steps to mitigate the spread of the virus. At one point, I appeared on George Stephanopoulos' Sunday show. I don't know if you watched that. No, you don't? Shocker. He had just wrapped up a segment with New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, where he asked Cuomo to give me some advice on how to deal with COVID. Now seems like a really good time to remind everyone of what Governor Cuomo was doing in New York. On March 25th, Cuomo ordered COVID patients into nursing homes, and he prohibited the staff from testing people before admitting them. 9 days later, he pushed legislation prohibiting nursing home lawsuits over COVID deaths. 6 days after that, he prohibited nursing homes from sending COVID patients to the nearby naval hospital ship or the field hospital, both of which were essentially empty. Now, 8 days after that, the first deaths started to show up. And on January 28th of this year, the New York Attorney General announced that Cuomo and his administration significantly undercounted the number of COVID-related deaths in nursing homes by as much as 50%. To make matters worse, they tried to cover it up. Now that is the media's COVID hero. And by the way, he also earned an Emmy, and he wrote a book on his COVID response. So who really needed the advice? Again, in South Dakota, we did things differently. We applied common sense and conservative governing principles. We never exceeded our
Okay, I'm going to stop there. We're about 8 minutes into this thing. And first of all, I just want to make a correction here. She wasn't wearing red. She's wearing this sort of pink, I guess you'd call it pink, fuchsia, dress, and it looks great here, right? And pink is calming, it's soothing, and she blends right into the background. And of course, you've got more pink, little hues of violet, and then red up here, which again represents passion and the will. Look at some of the comments here. The comments are interesting. If she ran for president, I would vote for her. She is a brightly shining beacon in a rapidly darkening world. The first female president. She would be a good candidate for 2024. She's got my vote. She's a rock star. I expect she'll be on the next Republican ticket. This governor is the one we need to follow. What an outstanding person. I love her. Kristi for president. She stole the show. She stole the show. Definitely would vote for her when she runs for president. Smart. What an amazing woman. This is the president we need next. Now, this is supposed to be Donald Trump's Lazarus moment. And I'm not a CPAC person, but this CPAC belonged to Kristi Noem. And I'm going to get into her chart, and I'm going to tell you why it belonged to her. Number one of the stories she talked about, and I'm not playing it, I suggest you watch the entire presentation. It's really good. She talks about when her father died. She was 22 years old, and her father died on the ranch. She comes from a ranching family, and I think she's the oldest of 3 girls. I think she has 2 sisters. Anyway, her father died, and she didn't know anything. She didn't know anything, and she talked about how she wished that he was there just so she could ask him, like, what time to plant certain crops, and what do we do with the cows at a certain time of year? How many should we sell in order to be cash flow positive? And all very practical types of questions. And then she talked about how he had this pickup, and she resisted going into his pickup for months. And then finally, about 4 or 5 months after he had passed away, she went into the pickup, and then she started to rummage around the console in the pickup. And what she found was a small tape recorder with a bunch of tapes. I think they might have been micro cassettes. And on those cassettes, her dad had left instructions on how to do everything. Everything. It was almost as if he was speaking to her, from the beyond. And she made a kind of a religious connection to that. And the reason why it's important is for a number of reasons. Number one, she's a Sagittarius. So she is going to, that's what I'm looking for. She's going to shine when it comes to moments like that, like teaching moments, right? That's what Sagittarius does. And what's really interesting is she contrasted herself with Andrew Cuomo, who's another Sagittarius. And that was a teaching moment, right? Again, she was showing what one guy did, that it didn't work. And not only did it not work, it feels a lot like blatant genocide. I mean, that's really, let's just cut to the chase. He was killing elderly people in New York State. When it comes right down to it, what he did facilitated the death of those people. And again, mostly seniors, right? And he was lauded and he was applauded by the media. Meanwhile, she's the one that is doing something different. She's demonized, and guess what? She's doing a hell of a lot better. But that's a teaching moment, right? And what she did is she used the anti-Sagittarian, even though she probably doesn't even know he's a Sagittarian. She might know that he might be born close to her birthday, possibly. I think he's born in December. But that's what she does. That's what she brings to the table. So let's take a look at her chart. Now, I don't have her birth time, so I kind of had to do a little bit of rectification. Yeah, let me see if I can pull this thing up here. So here we go. This is Kristi Noem's chart. All right. So she was born on November 30th, 1971. And, she's born in a county in South Dakota. That's the county seat. So I think it's probably about as close as it's going to get. Now, I don't have a time for her, but I have her as, I just put her as Aquarius rising. And the reason why is because we're starting to see her star rise. And that would be synonymous with Saturn being close to the ascendant. I mean, for me, this is what she's either an Aquarius rising or she's going to have Aquarius on her midheaven, one of the two. So I just took a stab at Aquarius rising. And the reason why is because of how shocking the death of her father was. It was one of those kind of Aquarian sorts of moments. And she did things that were contrary to what was being touted by somebody like Anthony Fauci and what other governors, and even the governor of this state, who's supposed to be a conservative, don't even get me started on Greg Abbott. She did something different, right? She's taking a contrarian kind of approach, which is going to be more about freedom. But look at this. She's got Jupiter and Sun and Neptune. They're all conjunct in Sagittarius. Now, where I have talked about this generation, these are going to be Gen X. These are Gen X people, right? We've got Pluto and Libra. She's classic Gen X, Pluto and Libra, born 1971. And I've talked about what Neptune was doing in Sagittarius during that time. And I talked about how Neptune in Sagittarius was, for me, the greatest spiritual renaissance in the history of this country. I would call it probably the fourth great awakening, but not from an ecclesiastical sense, although there is some of that. And I've talked about this before. When Neptune goes into Sagittarius, spirituality, religion, it really begins to surface and rise, right? I like one of the things that happens during that time. I think it's 1970, just as Neptune's going into Sagittarius, is Jesus Christ Superstar. Jesus was on the cover of Time magazine, Man of the Year, like psychedelic Jesus. Jesus is just all right with me. The Doobie Brothers. I mean, there was a lot going on then. It was like, it was Electric Jesus. It was like kind of cool, right? Seals and Crofts were really big, and they're Baha'i. Yeah. And then you had people like Jim Baker and Source Family and Maraji, who comes from India, the teen guru, Sagittarius, by the way. And then you have the arrival of the other gurus. Eventually, Osho shows up. And then, of course, there's human potential that's going on during that time, too. It's the rise of Scientology. It's the rise of Ast. I mean, the 70s were rocking and rolling for spirituality. It was a pretty, I mean, there were grifters in common. I mean, that happens, too. But there was a lot of really high vibrational energy during the 70s with Neptune and Sagittarius, which was really kind of a contrast with what was going on with Nixon and the Vietnam War, which is winding down, Watergate. So you had this, this really kind of polaric time. You can even see some of that here with Saturn and Gemini. That's happening. And Saturn's just moving into Gemini. So by the time we get into 1974, Nixon is gone. He's gone. By the time Saturn gets into Cancer, Nixon's gone. And the country is sort of dealing with the wounds of that. So she comes in on that wave. But by the time Neptune and Sagittarius is over, we're into things like channeling. Ramtha is really big. And there are a number of other channels that are starting to kind of happen during that time. So she's born during this period. And what's interesting is that Jim Baker of the Source Family, he said that the children that are born during this time are going to be the avatars that are going to lead the world. And you know what? I think he's right. Jim Baker was a very flawed human. He was a very powerful human. Father Yod, speaking of a Yod, she's got one with the moon. But he was right. And so Kristi Noem is part of that Neptune and Sagittarius generation. These are people that are imbued with natural spiritual wisdom, okay? And she's got this Sun-Neptune conjunction, very charismatic. I would say Kristi Noem is a really, really high being based on astrology. I mean, if I didn't know this was Kristi Noem, this is exactly what I'd be saying anyway. Like, this is a pretty enlightened person right here. And then you've got that Jupiter-Sun conjunction in Sagittarius. That's really powerful. And as long as she doesn't compromise, as long as she doesn't get sucked down into this Mars-Neptune square, she'll be good. She'll be okay. I think she's got the rest of this year could be tricky for her because people like Kristi Noem generally have a target painted on them. What's also interesting about her is she's a, obviously she's a woman, and you would think, right? You would think that women who are into the universal empowerment of women would love her, right? Oh, look at that. Great. She's a governor. She's doing great. She's leading her state. This is what, this is what we want. We want images of really empowered women. I don't think so. That's probably not going to happen. That's probably not going to happen. Now, I would love it if some quote unquote feminist just left the res and said that about her. But they won't, because she doesn't fit a particular image. She's conservative, number one. She's got religious beliefs, number two. And number three, she doesn't look like Betty Friedan. Okay. So, but you would think that might be the case. It's not really going to be the case. So Jupiter-Sun conjunction, man, this person, Kristi Noem, the sky's the limit with her. As long as she can get through this South Node transit, especially like around her birthday, like that's kind of a critical time for her. She's somebody I think the media will go after. They'll go after, and especially when we get into this this Mars transit, right? So here's Mars right there in Gemini, and I'm sorry, in Taurus. And what's it going to do? It's going to oppose her Neptune straight out, right? Straight out. This is going to be sort of attacks on her beliefs, attacks on her religion. Saturn, Mars, Saturn conjunction coming very soon. So we're talking about by the end of the week. Mars Sun opposition, aggression, attacks from the outside. That's how oppositions work. So the next couple of weeks are going to be very interesting for Kristi Noem with this Mars transit. And again, with the South Node up here, or at least around her Sagittarian planets, I think she's vulnerable. She's a bit vulnerable. Her Mercury, this is interesting, her Mercury is conjunct the galactic center right there. So she's actually dealing with her brain is attuned to this giant computer in a lot of ways, right? And then she's got Venus in Capricorn, which is fascinating because you could tell like she's got that kind of cool Capricornian vibe about her. And everything is kind of moving from Chiron in Aries, moving into Neptune and moving into the Sun and moving into Jupiter. So what's interesting is that with Chiron and Aries, what do we have? We've got a strong woman. We've got a really strong woman with Chiron and Aries. And if she's giving people, I think, a different understanding of how to use this idea of the will with Aries, right? Because it's got a higher capacity. And it's tempered by Neptune and by the Sun. I love the Chiron-Neptune trine. That's a really high vibration. It's a super high vibration. In some ways, it's a bit sacrificial, but I think it's very powerful. It's very, very powerful because one of the things that she could do with this Chiron and Aries is she could relate to people, right? The wounded individual. And sort of, raise them up. The other thing that she has is she's got a kind of a wide sextile with Pluto and the Sun, which is powerful. She's got staying power. And another aspect of staying power is the Saturn trine to Pluto in the chart. So as long as something unusual does not happen to her, she's going to be around. Because this is somebody who has kind of long-range goals. And here, I think Saturn's her father. Obviously, I mean, Saturn's the father in the chart, and I think she's dealing and working with this Saturn energy in her chart and trying to kind of corral this or bring it from, the root cellar of her life and some of these values up to this sort of chart. And again, I'm just dealing with this time that I, threw out there and rectified. Who knows? Maybe in a week or so there'll be a time for her. I hope so, because I'd like to see what her rising sign is. In any case, Saturn's always going to be in opposition here, and she's got this Moon in Taurus, which is solid. I love Moon in Taurus. Uranus is coming. Uranus is coming down, and she's got looks like she's got a yod with Uranus in conjunct the Moon, and then Jupiter in conjunct the Moon. That's interesting. That's a really, really interesting. And she's got a Jupiter-Uranus sextile. That's fantastic for improvisation and thinking on her feet. This is interesting. This is very interesting. How would I interpret this? Okay, here's what I think. First of all, Moon in Taurus is, but it's exalted, isn't it? And she is really grounded, super grounded, down to earth, which is great with Moon in Taurus. But there are other sides of her that I don't think she shows, and that's this Uranian in conjunct with the Moon, and I think there are complex emotions that maybe she doesn't even understand, or not just complex emotions, but again, what happened with her father and how quickly he passed away. Like, and then ultimately that became like a gift because she talks about that. Again, this is this Uranian in conjunct with the moon to deal with chaos in a way and have it get grounded and get worked out. It's going to be very interesting when Uranus hits her moon and is going to be part of this in conjunct. And even with Jupiter, to me, the in conjunct with Jupiter is again, you're dealing with Sagittarian kinds of issues and the wisdom that comes from the fallout, I think, of an event that is completely unplanned and shocking. There you go, right there. And it's a wide conjunction with Pallas, but with Pallas, she's able to understand patterns and see things. I think she's a good person. The one thing that does trouble me a little bit is the Mars square to Neptune, and she's got Mars in Pisces, which I actually kind of like. I like Mars in Pisces. I think it's I think it's a really I think it's a good aspect for Mars. I actually do, especially if you're creative, and especially if you have some kind of humanitarian kind of goal with Mars and Pisces. It's not the strongest Mars, but again, when you're dealing with water, it can be forceful when it needs to be. It can certainly be forceful or activated when it's inspired. And I do like the sextile to the moon. I think it's great. It's a nice sextile. It's passionate. Again, it's humanitarian but grounded. The square to Neptune, I think, is a little, to me, it's a little troubling. I think in a pinch, but maybe when she lost her father, she stepped up and maybe she was able to understand. I think that we learned a lot about her over this past year. And I think we learned what happened, how she comported herself with pressure. Okay, with pressure. And I think she did a really good job. So maybe she's learned the lessons of this Mars-Neptune square. And she has had a lot of traffic tickets, apparently. Drive without a license, speeding. She's had like 20 traffic tickets. Maybe this is what that's about. I like Mars-Sun squares. I think people of Mars-Sun squares are fighters. She's a fighter. She'll fight for things. And just as long as she doesn't get bogged down by the Mars-Neptune square, which is, maybe fighting the wrong fight. And I think maybe, she's probably learned a few things. The Venus-Pluto square is intense. This is somebody who does not give up. Usually Venus-Pluto squares, people will hang in there with relationships until they're completely worked out and worked through. And especially with Venus and Capricorn, it's a little cool. It's a little reserved. And the square to Pluto is, to me, she's probably tougher than people might give her credit for with the Venus-Pluto square. And the Venus-Chiron square, that could actually be helpful in some ways. I think that could be helpful because Venus in Capricorn is tough. Like, it's really tough. And and she's got an interesting Venus-Mercury conjunction that's insight into personal dynamics, interrelated psychological dynamics with another person. It's an interesting chart. This yacht is going to be fascinating when Uranus comes around. It's going to be next year, right? That's going to be interesting. I wonder if something unusual again is going to happen to her. She better be careful, though. She better be careful with this South Node. This will clear up for her next year. Yeah. She's interesting. Very interesting. True Node in Aquarius, this is her time, right? It's her time. This is what she's here to do. She is here to kind of, lead the way in a different kind of way. She's going to be very interesting to watch. She has a lot of air in her chart, a ton of air, which means that she's idea driven. She's got a lot of fire and a lot of passion, a fair amount of earth, doesn't have a lot of water. It's not somebody who is given over to emotional excess. Could she run the risk of, being a sociopath and not a lot of water? I don't know. That Mars-Neptune square probably keeps her a little bit open. But she's got the Sun-Neptune conjunction. Neptune, the ruler of Pisces. So I think that makes her kind. So I don't think she's going to go down that path. I don't think she'll go down that path. I like her. I like her chart. This is fantastic. This Jupiter, Sun, Neptune conjunction. This is a high being. I'm telling you right now. She's got tremendous spiritual potential. Sun sextile to the true node. Neptune sextile to the true node. Yep. So one of the things she talks about is this event that happened with her father, and I looked that up. I wanted to see what that would look like the passing of her father. What would that look like? And there were some interesting things that potentially one could draw some sort of conclusion from. So her father passed away on March 10th, 1994. So this is the chart. We have Kristi Noem on the inner ring. Okay, the inner ring. And there are a couple of things that jumped out. Number one is the Saturn-Pluto opposition. Remember, Saturn is the father in the chart. So her Saturn's at like 2 degrees Gemini. And here's Pluto. It's at the end of Scorpio. So we have Pluto at 26 Scorpio. And Saturn's at 2 Gemini. So it's moving into orb, right? And then the true node was in Scorpio as well. So Saturn's the father. Pluto represents death and transformation. It's not exact, but it's pretty close. It's moved into orb. So it's 6 degrees. And, I don't know where Pluto was 5 months later or 6 months later when she discovered those tapes. Maybe it's close, or maybe it's closer to Saturn in terms of opposition. That would be interesting. I'd have to look that up. But that really jumped out at me, right? There's that Pluto-Saturn opposition. It's like, oh, okay. Yep, I see it. And then the South Node is closer, actually, because the South Node is in Taurus. Transiting South Node is in Taurus. So the true node, we're going to see that right here. And that's going to be at 26 Taurus. And then here's Pluto. It's exactly opposite the South Node. Exactly opposite the South Node. At that time, on that day. And again, I don't know what time he passed. I threw this up there like maybe 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sort of, throwing some spaghetti at the wall with a rectified chart with her. But we know that this is here. She's dealing with this Plutonian opposition. She's dealing with Pluto opposing that South Node. And she's got her moon in Taurus. So that's going to affect her security, right? It's going to affect her security. It's going to affect her emotional well-being. What's interesting is that ultimately this thing will wind up being a good thing for her. I know it's hard to, she probably didn't know that at the time, but there's the part of fortune. Like her father's passing has probably led her to where she is today. If he was around, we probably wouldn't know about Kristi Noem, would we? Maybe, but not like this. So this is a really good exercise in terms of looking at events in a person's life and seeing how misfortune can shape character. And what's interesting is that the world that we're living in now, they want to take the danger and the risk, the potential for transformation out of everything. So that moments like these don't necessarily shape people's lives in some ways. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like everything has become so insulated, and there are people who are willing to virtual signal for even like the slightest of hurts or wounds. Or I saw this thing with Jason Whitlock, and he was talking about Tiger Woods and how Tiger Woods would wind up basically. Look, if he lost his legs, he'd learn how to live with it. That's what he said. And Jason could be a little flip, but that's what he said. And he had this woman come on, and God, she like busted his chops because she had some kind of disability, and it was just bizarre. It was bizarre, and it was like she had written a piece for the New York Times about this thing. And what was an ableist? An ableist. She called him an ableist. I'd never heard that term before, right? An ableist. It's like the ableism is strong with this one. I couldn't fucking believe it. And then I looked her up, and she'd written some. I guess her husband left her because of her disability. But immediately she gets to write a piece for the New York Times, and all of a sudden she's got a huge Twitter following, right? That didn't happen when Kristi Noem lost her father. That didn't happen. They didn't have Twitter. They didn't have these instantaneous sort of support cults that have popped up now and insulate people from everything. Everything. The other thing that I saw here is this Mars-Saturn conjunction and squaring her sun and squaring her Neptune at the time. That's like immediate shit, right? That's immediate. Again, Saturn, the father. And then with the Mercury and the moon that time, right, is in Aquarius. It's going to be sudden. It's going to be swift. See, the moon's in Pisces. Wow. Okay, my bad. So the moon is going to be conjunct what? Her Mars. Her Mars at 13. I'm sorry, I'm still going to ignore a chart. So moon's at 1 degree Pisces, squaring Neptune. Squaring Neptune. Where's Mars? Mars is at 2 Pisces. Moon Mars conjunction. Swift, sudden, emotional, squaring Neptune, squaring her sun. Boom. Saturn is at 4 Pisces. Saturn Neptune square. Saturn Sun square. She's having all these squares in that moment to her Sun and Neptune. Bang. The Saturn Pluto opposition. South node opposed Pluto. And then here we have an inconjunct. Her Pluto right here. And it looks like it's going to be in conjunct Mars Saturn. There we go. Right? She's gonna learn from this moment. She's going to learn from death and passing and transformation. And the Mars Saturn conjunction I think is what's going to be passed on to her. That's what's going to be passed on to her through this inconjunct. This is an important chart, actually. This is a very important chart in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it's very important. So this is to a great extent what I think has contributed to who Kristi Noem is. And I think she's interesting. I think she's special, actually. Not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But this is a pretty high vibrational chart. And somebody's gone through a lot of intensity. And if we're still in some form of government or part of the United States splits up, I hope I'm part of the United States that she's a part of. All right, let's see where you guys are. Let's see what's happening with you. Where'd you go? What happened? What happened? Oh, there you are. All right. I have Mars 19 conjunct Saturn in my second in Scorpio. You're intense. You and David have that Mars-Saturn conjunction. Let's see. What else do we have here? You guys are in Pisces land tonight. That's good. It's good. an ableist. In the disability studies literature is someone who ignores reality faced by those with disabilities. I just found that out. An ableist. So we have ableists, we have sexists, we have racists, we have nativists. I guess we live in a universe of isms. Tiger's injuries not serious. Marketing ploy, great comeback. I could be wrong. Proved to the world, and the surgeries were real. Not going to happen. You know, at this point, I could care less about Tiger Woods. Just not. Could care less. Oh, there you are. You made it. I talked about you earlier. She'd make a great VP pick for Trump's next. No, fuck. I'm sorry. I was going to say fuck Trump. I'm over Trump. I'm over Trump. Sorry. I'm over Trump. Over Trump. Over him. Over him. Over him. I would take Kristi Noem over Trump any day. Any day. Any day. She's got a better chart. Way better chart. Let's see. I would like to see a debate between Tulsi Gabbard and Kristi Noem. That would be good. But I think they'd probably agree more than they disagreed. I think they'd agree more than they disagreed. I'd like to see a debate between Kristi Noem and Kamala Harris. That's the debate I'd like to see. Let's see. I'm over Trump too. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He had a shot. He had a chance. He could have done some things differently. And I know there's a lot of Trump love there. I think he's interesting. I think he was a disruptor, and I think he changed the political climate. And I think ultimately he changed it for the better. Okay, I'll give him that. But we got to go to another level now. We've got to go to another level, and I think there is another level. Yeah, there is a level. I saw an alleged Tiger Woods tweet that said he had evidence would put Hillary C. in jail before his accident. Really? He had that? He said that? Why do they say that shit? Why do they say that shit? Oh, I've got evidence. News at 11. Like, if you've got evidence, don't fucking say anything. Just figure out how to make it known. It seems to me like, well, I have evidence that so-and-so is guilty of such and such. Yeah, well, let's see how long you're going to be around. It's just time to move forward. Yeah, I agree. Trump did some things that were good. He did expose the Belly of the Beast. He exposed the media. That's what he's supposed to do. He's a disruptor. He's a clown prince disruptor. Kristi Noem has a higher vibration. I'm telling you right now. That Jupiter Sun Neptune conjunction, that is very high vibrational stuff. Very high vibrational stuff. Tiger ain't that stupid. Trump woke a lot of people up. I would agree. Trump started something. That was what he was supposed to do. Trump did what he was supposed to do. Would it have been better if he could have staved off, the zombie show that we're watching now? Yeah, I think so. I think it would have been better. It would have been a lot better. But hey, it's okay. It's okay. It's not supposed to be where it's at. And, when we were watching the election and we were doing that live stream, I forget who it was. Somebody asked me, who did I want to win? And I said, well, I want the candidate ultimately who's going to be the best candidate to help us wake up and move into this new paradigm together with. I let it go at that point. I let it go. And apparently it was Joe Biden. And that's the way it is. That's the way it is. So, where are we? They stole the election from the people. I'll get in trouble if I say that. You can say that. Pam Jerome said they stole the election from the people. That's Pam Jerome. She said that. Hope she is protected. I would say so too. I think she is. That's some, Jupiter, Neptune, Sagittarius conjunction. That's pretty divinely guided stuff. Time for under 50 folks to take over Gov. Yeah, we need some young people. And she's going to be, I do think Gen X is the wild part in all this. Gen X people know what it's like to kind of live in the 20th century. They're not all screened out. And that Neptune, they've got Pluto in Libra and Neptune in Sagittarius. Those are pretty high vibrational outer planets. I've got hope for Gen X. I think it's easy to forget that the best things come from bad times. Gen S must be Gen X. Good stuff. March 26th, Joe and Kamala gone, Nancy in. We'll see. Could be. We'll see. We will need someone like her to guide those who wish to get out of the dark winter and go to another level. We do need new leaders. Look, there are things about the United States of America that I think are important and special. But I think we have to move past like a certain kind of nostalgia. And we have to redefine what those things are so that we can have an updated version of that is really, really meaningful. Really meaningful. And I think what Trump did is he ignited a base. He got people excited about the country again. He got excited about the possibility of what it would be like to embrace more traditional values. And for that, I'm grateful for. And he lit the wick. That's what he did. He lit the wick. Let's see. I'm a Zennial. Oh, okay. So you're like on the fringe of Gen X and millennials. Got it. Gen X right here. That's me, Pluto and Libra, and Neptune and Sag. It's a good group of people. You guys you're going to be ultimately coming into those positions of leadership and power. You're kind of there now. You're kind of there now, but it's gonna come in. Just wait until the South Node gets out of Sagittarius, and some of the Aquarian planets now, are gonna just wait until Pluto moves into Aquarius and starts to trine your Neptunes. That's going to be a really exciting time, and in a time where the Gen X generation is going to impact culture in a way that is going to be, I think, deeper and profound. It's going to be your time, and I'm rooting you on. Born late 1990. Is that millennial? Yes. Yes. For me, the millennials really come on the scene around I think they come on the scene around 1985, 86. That's when Pluto moves into Scorpio late 1984. But Pluto does that retrograde thing. So I think around 85, that's when the millennials come on. And, by 1996, I guess you could make a case for maybe around 1983 with the millennials. But by 1997, they're done. By 1997, we're dealing with Pluto and Sagittarius. Some people would say that the millennials come in around 1982. That's possible. That's that kind of tweener. There's always that tweener kind of, they don't know where they are. I don't know if I'm a millennial. I don't know if I'm a Gen Xer. There's always that group, and they're kind of part of that group. I'd say maybe around about 82 to about 85. But by the time 85 kicks in, it's Pluto and Scorpio, and the millennials are off and running. They're off and running. July 1984. That's when I graduated. I graduated from college in July 1984. Phoenix. I don't have to jump into a shit something to know what stinks. Come on, the election's fraudulent. Well, what am I supposed to say? I got kicked off of fucking YouTube for a week for saying that. Okay, you can say it. I'm not saying it because I don't believe it, okay? I'd like to keep my channel for another week so I can do this again. You understand what I'm dealing with here? Right? You understand what I'm dealing with? You and I we're rowing in the same boat. We're rowing in the same boat. You can say it because you're on my show. You're in here. You're in my chat room. I can say it on Vimeo. I'll say it tomorrow on Vimeo. But I'd like to keep this channel open because it's the one channel I don't seem to get shut down. So you have to understand that I've got some constraints here. And that's the reason why they took me off for a week, because I claimed that the election was fraudulent. Okay. You can read between the lines. I think you know how I feel about it. I'd like to keep the window open. What are my thoughts on government forcing all the farmers to kill all the animals? That's brutal. It's brutal. What they're doing, here, let me do this. So what's happening is the processing plants don't have enough people, theoretically, to work in the processing plants because of COVID-19. So as a result of that, there's excess livestock, and they're being forced to kill their livestock. I think it's insane. I think it's inhuman. I think it is. And I can't even look. If I wanted to go down that rabbit hole, I'd start throwing shit around this room. Okay. I got into a space today where I got in touch with a lot of anger that I was like holding on to. And I realized I've got a few things to work through. Yeah, it's fucked. It's fucked because number one, they're going after farmers, and they're going to tell farmers what to do. They're going to tell them what to do. They're going to have to kill off this livestock, which is inhumane. And then they're going to come in with Bill Gates and all of his farmland, and they're going to grow synthetic beef. I mean, they're basically taking the cattle prods to humanity to move them into the great fucking reset. Okay, that's what's happening. And first they'll kill off the cattle, and then they'll kill off the rest of us, because that's the plan. You want me to be frank? There I am. I'm being frank about it. That's what's happening. We just had a major storm here in Texas. You should see the devastation it did. We've got palm trees. We've got cacti. They're all dead. They're all dead. Dead. And you think, well, okay, well, yeah, those things are just ornamental. No, they're especially the cacti, they're part of the ecosystem. They're all dead. And people struggle to keep their animals alive. And I don't know how things are going to come back, just in terms of the ecosystem here. I'm curious. I've never seen that here before, and not to that extent. And I didn't try to burn any of the snow. Who knows? Maybe it was like, this nucleated snow, and who knows how that's going to affect things. But we're in a pinch here. We're in a real pinch, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of people that are on our side. It's one of the reasons, actually, why I'm running for city council, because maybe, just maybe, I could talk about a few things, and I might be able to change a few people's minds and flip on a few lights in the attic. And who knows? Maybe I'll even get in. I'll be the either the best or the worst thing that's ever happened to this place. I don't know, but that's a way for me to deal with it. And I live in an area that is connected to agriculture. There's a lot of agriculture around here. I live right down the road from a stockyard. I hear the cows at night. I know a lot of you probably don't like to hear that, but I do. And it took a little while to kind of wrap my head around it, but that's the way it is here. It's how people live. So, you get used to it on some level. I'm not inured to it, but all right. Let's see. What do we have here? They did this to the Navajos with their sheep years ago, forced them to cull them. They did it a long time ago in England with mad cow. When I remember it was around 1984. when they were slaughtering all these cows in England because they said that they had mad cow. I don't know if they did or not. I don't know if they did. I remember watching all these cows. I was over in England at that time, watching them get slaughtered. What's interesting was at the same time, they were showing all these images of these people starving in Ethiopia. We know that they weren't even starving. Like they some of them were hungry because they had these two warlords that were fighting and cutting off food supplies. And then Sir Bob Geldof does Live Aid and gets all that money and all those food supplies, sends them to Ethiopia, and it's taken by one of the fucking warlords. But they were slaughtering cows en masse in England at that time. It was just weird. It's like they were having both these things happen. It was just so strange. I'm not sure if they had mad cows, but they'll do that. They're going to control look, we're going to have food. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to have issues with the distribution chain. That's going to happen. That is going to happen. We're going to have issues with the supply chain. We're going to have issues with the food supply. We're going to have issues with money. They're going to be up and down. I think it was it the Supreme Court? There was a major court that made a decision that the CDC and the United States could not keep evictions from happening. Oh yeah, that ruling just came in. So what's going to happen now? You're going to have all these landlords now who've been forced to not evict their tenants. You're going to see landlords probably evict their tenants. It's going to happen. So now what's going to happen? You're going to have a bunch of displaced people. That's going to happen too. We're in for some very, very serious times here. Very serious times. And I said 2021 was going to be tough. 2021 is a 5-year. And I know that 5 ultimately can be good. Okay. It can be a good number. It's universal man and all that shit. But you look at the minor arcana and the tarot, and all those cards are difficult cards. They're difficult cards. I'm sorry, they are. The 5 is a difficult vibration. But you have to learn how to master the 5. That's where you have the Hierophant or the High Priest to come in. You've got to be able to deal with suffering, your own suffering and the suffering of others. This is where we're at. 2022 is going to be a 6-year. It's a little bit better. Potentially a little bit better. This is going to be a challenging year, man. This is going to be a challenging year. And there's not going to be a lot of people from a governmental standpoint that are going to be there to pump the brakes. We can see what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now. They're not your friend. They're just not your friend. When Biden helped out Texas, he only helped out the blue area of Texas. He didn't help out places where I live or some of the more rural areas of Texas. He only gave relief to his favorite blue cities. And then we have this so-called conservative governor. What the fuck is he going to do? He's going to cover his ass and he's going to talk about how good the vaccine program's going. That's where we are. Let's see. What else do we have? 5 is a dramatic vibe. It is. It is a dramatic vibe. Hi, Shanda Sparkles. See, look at that. Andre Garland said, I actually saw an article that said later they determined the mad cow in England wasn't serious and widespread. Imagine that. Imagine that. I went back and I just remembered that in my head. I'm like, really? They had to kill all those cows? Did they really have mad cow? Or was somebody profiting off of the futures price of cattle or beef? That probably was probably really more the reason. Gaming the commodities market. Okay. Cannibalism is already happening. Yep. 5 is also the pentagram, a very powerful symbol Embodying a human. Yeah, it's divine man. It's Da Vinci, right? 1, 2, 3 legs, 4, 5. The nature of the physical pain is painful to be born, painful to die, and pain along the way. Spoken like a true Sagittarius. Born in 57, and my life has been hard. Life on Earth is not easy. How does Robert not have to go to the bathroom after drinking all that water? I'm a camel. Mad Cow is theater. Yeah. Neil Ferguson predicted Mad Cow and COVID figures. There's a scam artist, right? Total scam artist. Okay, I wanted to look at a few other things tonight before we go, because I've been doing this for 2 hours and 30 minutes. You guys are great, by the way. I wanted to look at this other chart, and this might give us some insight into the Bretton Woods Agreement and the petrodollar. So, let's see. We were shown cows staggering like the Chinese in Wuhan. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. Here we go. What did Darcy say? She said, Robert, do you think they'll try to bring two-tiered system? Well, it's getting clearer that we are living in a two-tiered system. Will it look something like Elysium? Probably. Okay, this is the petrodollar. This is the chart for the petrodollar. So when Nixon and Kissinger got together, they made a deal with the Saudis. We'll protect you as long as you make sure that countries of the world, have to use an American dollar to buy your oil. And that ensured the hegemony of the dollar for quite a long time. Now, it was said that Nixon did this because of inflation, whatever. There were a lot of government controls going on with Nixon. Nixon was not a free market. I mean, I think Milton Friedman probably did not do well with Nixon. There were a lot of market controls going on with Nixon when you look back on that. Anyway, so this is the day, like August 15th, 1971. This is the day the world changed. This is the day we got off the gold standard and we took on the petrodollar, and the American dollar became the world's reserve currency. Now, what's interesting is that the true node was at Aquarius. It's funny, like this is just a few months before Kristi Noem was born. She was born, August, September, October, November. 5 months later. 5 months later. So the true node was in Aquarius. We saw that in Kristi Noem's chart, right? So here's Saturn, right here, right there. Saturn in Aquarius. When was the last time we saw Saturn in Aquarius? We saw Saturn in Aquarius when George Bush and the Coalition of the Willing went into Iraq. Why did they go into Iraq? Well, they went into Iraq because they wanted to reclaim the southern oil fields in Iraq, which is exactly what they did. They went in there, they chased the Iraqis out of the south, and they gave some of those oil fields back to the Kuwaitis. Eventually, they had to go back and reclaim them again, but that's what they did. So they were dealing with oil, right? This was an oil issue with Saturn in Aquarius. It's interesting. So they were sort of reclaiming, and I remember during that time that there were these scuds. Remember the scuds? And they were talking about, oh, Saddam's going to go in and he's going to take out the oil fields in Saudi Arabia. He could do that. He could do that. So what did the United States do? Well, we went back in there so that we could theoretically liberate the Kuwaitis, but also protect our Saudi business partners. Now, what's interesting is that here we have Saturn in Aquarius again, and we're coming back to that time when Saturn was in Aquarius. And one of the things that's very different with the Biden administration is that they've come out now and they've said that bin Salman was responsible for Khashoggi's death. And that really wasn't addressed during the Trump administration because Jared Kushner and bin Salman were bros. So we're seeing, again, a different kind of attitude towards Saudi Arabia than we did during the Trump administration. And the petrodollar was created for that sole purpose. And here we have Saturn in Aquarius. I'm sorry, Gemini. And this is a lot like Kristi Noem's chart, actually. Well, except that she's a Sag. Some of the same planets are in play, except for Pluto. Pluto here is at 25 Virgo. So she had Pluto at one Libra, right? I think 1 Libra. So Pluto here is pretty well aspected. Its power, its resources. It's got the sextile to Jupiter right there in Scorpio, right? Neptune, Sagittarius, 0 degrees, by the way, right there, Neptune and Sagittarius, dealing with foreign countries like Saudi Arabia. What's also interesting is that now while they're also trying to dredge up this this very dark moment that happened in Turkey at the embassy with Khashoggi and the House of Saud, they're also sort of reaffirming in some ways that Saudi Arabia is going to be more involved in not more involved in the production of oil, but their oil will be more important. Why? Because the XL pipeline was cut off and shut down. And we saw what happened here in Texas with the power grid. Texas is a country. It is like a country. Texas is a state that runs on oil and natural gas. It's abundant. Outside of Saudi Arabia, it's probably one of the more abundant places with oil and natural gas. It's huge here. But they're cutting it off. And so there will be more of a dependence on Saudi Arabia. And how did this take place and why did it take place? It had to do with Saudi Arabia. So here we go. Now, what's going to be interesting is, again, as we move away from oil in general, what's that going to mean to the relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia? Over the next 4 years, I think it'll probably, on the one hand, decline, but on the other hand, will also probably be at least a bit more successful if they haven't started pumping water, and that could be the case. If they haven't started pumping water, they'll do okay because there'll be less energy independence in the United States, which means we'll have to find energy elsewhere, and that place obviously would be Saudi Arabia and other countries. That said, there will also be a different political climate in some ways, especially for moving towards the green economy. And if that's the case, then the petrodollar is going to be dead. It's going to be very interesting because Saturn is very close here, 13 degrees. And I think that's by June. And then it retrogrades. And by the end of the year, it's going to be conjuncting the true node from this event. And I think by that time, we'll know more. We'll know more about where the dollar is going to be. I think the first indication or inclination will be around June. That's my sense. By the end of the year, moving into the beginning of 2022, when Saturn comes in and conjuncts that true node, which really is the sort of the marker for this event where the petrodollar was established, it's going to be, you know, the other, because on the other side of this, you've got Venus. And Venus is contractual. That's how Venus works, right? Venus is contracts. And we have the South Node conjunct Venus here in Leo. What's interesting is that the way this thing was set up is that it's way more Aquarian. It's way more Aquarian than it is in some ways kind of, you know, oligarchic or oilgarchic. It's way more Aquarian. You know, you've got like the SWIFT system, and like you can see where like global banking, like this is a globalist move. This is a total globalist move right here. And in some ways, there's some power being given away. What's also interesting is that, you know, he's moving off the gold standard. And Leo, as a sign, is really associated with gold. You know, gold is the coin of the realm. It is the coin of the realm, and it is the economy of royalty. And this is the South Node, and they're moving off of that, right? They're moving away from that. They're moving away from the gold standard, and they're moving over here into this Aquarian thing, which is, it's more about the distribution of the network of dollars. It's really interesting. It's very interesting. There's something here. There's something about this transit around the end of the year and the beginning of 2022, which marks the end of this cycle. You know, it marks the end of a particular cycle. And it's really a 60-year cycle. You know, Saturn runs in 30-year cycles, but this is the second time this has been here. So it's the second of two 30-year cycles. So you're dealing with 60, 320, 320. So 640 degrees. And, 360, 360, my bad. I don't know why 320 is in there. So 360 and 360, that's 720. 720, right? Yeah. 720, that's a 9. So that's the end of a cycle. That's the end of a cycle. 360 was another end of the cycle, but it was connected to, that time is connected to Iraq. And it was connected ultimately to what happened again later in Iraq, which is when we had Saturn in Gemini again, right? That was to be 30 years later, that'd be 2001, and that was the seizing of Iraq and the oil assets. So they're all kind of connected here. They're all kind of connected. So what's going to be the end of this cycle? Because that's how they kind of renewed the cycle, that 30-year cycle with Saturn. Ultimately was to go back in and grab new oil, grab new energy. Interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. Anything else with this chart? Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is that the true node is going to peak here by the end of the year, you know, right when Saturn is starting to come into orb again with the true node, that it's going to come around for another peak. And the last time it was kind of in this position when Saturn was in Gemini, it's 9/11, going into Iraq and going into Afghanistan and plundering those resources. So, you know, this time, by the end of the year, is kind of the end of these two cycles. So they either have to renew the cycle by doing something along those lines, which is what they did in 2001, or the cycle just ends. This is going to be an interesting thing to witness. Because ultimately, the way that they've set this thing up is, the Chiron return for that moment too. That's coming. That's interesting. That'll be next year. So again, you're seeing this 50, because it's a 50-year cycle, right? Right there with Chiron, bang, right there. Huh. It's an interesting chart. But I think it's so fascinating to see this and witness this as being related to gold. We're moving off that gold standard, that South Node, a relationship with this kind of, Leo currency, and moving over here, and making the dollar more of the worth more of a network, and more, again, it's more global. It's much more global. All right, there we go. There's that. Okay, we've been doing this for 2 hours and 45 minutes. We got 316 people. Last full moon of winter, just waning by. Yep, it's really called the snow moon, don't they? Is this a snow moon? I don't believe the house market is going to take any time soon. We need to pay attention to June and December. Oh, I definitely think we need to pay attention to December. Absolutely. Let's see, what else do we have here? Keep your cars filled this month. A little bit of cash on hand. Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, there's been so much crazy stuff. I have a man coming to the house tomorrow to talk to me about putting a generator. I have workers here repairing all the PVC piping, completely busted. If you get a generator, one of the things you want to make, if you can figure out, see, generators make noise. They're good for short-term emergencies. But if the power goes out for a long period of time and you got a generator, people will know you have a generator. They'll be able to hear it. Solar generators are interesting. They're quiet. Let's see. Preppers are the unsung heroes. All this. People scoffed. I know, right? I know. People scoffed. Did I have to go to the store? No. I didn't have to go to the store. I was fine. I was fine. Speaking of gold, that statue of Trump at CPAC was strange. I didn't see it, but he loves gold. Trump. If you've ever seen Trump Tower, it's a golden palace. It's a monument to Apollo. Real estate prices going through the roof in Phoenix. Yep. Power is out for 7 days on Padre Island. Corpus Christi, lost all my food. Oh my God. Wow, that is rough. Even if you could, did you see the video at the beginning, Chandra? I played a video at the beginning. Go back and watch the beginning. There's a way you can jack your generator right into your box. Yeah. Oh, hey Shay, nice to see you. Solar generators, jackery.com. Yep, there you go. I have a regular gas generator. I went to the local Vapo, and I went there on Friday to fill a propane tank. They did not have one empty propane tank in that place. They have propane, but not one empty propane tank. I wasn't out, but I heard that they had a line a half a mile long to get into that Vapo when the snow hit. And this is an area where you think people would have their shit together. I'm getting a big Generac that goes right into the house. Good. Excellent. Good for you. Some power went out in New York public housing. They were not on the same grid as Con Edison. I wonder if it was Texas. Well, I think ultimately we're all connected. I think that's what this thing showed us in some way. Okay. I bought 4 blue rhinos. That's good. That's good. All right. I wanted to do another chart, but I'm not going to do it because I've been here for 2 hours and 49 minutes. You guys probably hit saturation point. So I'm gonna get out of here. But next week, there are 2 charts that I want to do. So I've been watching old baseball on TV. Steve Crimmy would love to hear that. And I ran across a game that I saw when I was 15 years old, and it was Mark the Bird Fidrich against the New York Yankees on Monday Night Baseball. Sunday Monday Night Baseball, and the announcers were Warner Wolf and Bob Prince, and Bob Prince was calling guys all the wrong names and shit. It was kind of funny, but it was a really I loved Mark Fidrich. He was such a unique and eccentric character, and his attitude was nothing short of like amazing. So next week I'm gonna break down Mark Fidrich's chart. It's a very unique chart, and kind of his incandescent moment as he just shot across our sporting landscape, and even left us way too soon. Like Mark Fidrich passed away, a unique character, unique personality. So I'm going to look at his chart, and it's actually a really unique chart. And then I want to get into next week. I want to get into Jane Mansfield. I wanted to do that tonight, but Jane Mansfield, very interesting chart, interesting woman, interesting death too. So we got that to look forward to next week. In the meantime, thanks for being here. He was the bird. Mark Fidrich was great, man. He was great. Don't forget to get the links to your show this week in Twitter and FB. Yes, I will do that. Love Bob Prince. Bob Prince was great. Bob Prince was a little slow in his game. By the way, that game had some really interesting characters. You had Mark Fidrich, Rusty Staub, who is known as Le Grand Orange. He was a gourmet cook from New Orleans. Great, really good baseball player. You had Alex Johnson, who was a total nutcase. I think it was his last season for the Tigers. He was from Detroit, and he played for the Tigers that season. Total nut job. He had Ron LaFleur. Ron LaFleur is a very unusual story. I'm going to get into Ron LaFleur. The guy never played baseball in his life, right? He was playing baseball on a prison team in Michigan, and some guy at a bar had seen him play. And Billy Martin, who hung out at bars, talked to this guy, and he said, "You got to go see this guy who he's playing in this prison league." So Billy Martin went to the prison and watched him play, and he said, "Let's sign him." I love Billy Martin. He was great. He was totally fucked up, but he was great. And so they signed him. They got him out of prison. They signed him to a minor league contract. You got $5,000. Anything, you got $500 a game. And he quickly moved through the minor league systems, and he was in the majors in about 2 years and playing for the Detroit Tigers, and he became an all-star. The thing that's really interesting about Ron LaFleur is he was a little shady. I mean, he had to be a little shady for being in prison. He was still shady when he was playing with the Tigers. But the thing that was interesting about Ron LaFleur is that he had 2 birth dates, and he's a Gemini, right? So of course he had 2 birthdays. There was the birth date that he gave, and there was another birth date that was really his birthday, which made him 4 years older than he actually was. It's a fascinating story. In fact, LeVar Burton played him on. They had a made-for-TV movie about Ron LaFleur's life, and so I'm going to look at Ron LaFleur's chart too. That's going to be interesting. So Ron LaFleur, Mark Fidrich, Jane Mansfield, IQ of 160. How about that? And that's it. I'll be on Vimeo tomorrow. Follow me on Facebook or follow me. I'll be streaming live here on YouTube. Actually, be on the other channel. And but I'll leave a link on Twitter. All right, everybody, take good care. All right, you guys are the best. Plan to trash this planet and bug out to Mars. Love that. It's awesome. It's true. They did it before. All right, take care, everybody. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. Have a good night.